On the streets of Paris, colorful mosaic aliens from the classic video game Space Invaders have become as much a part of the cityscape as cafe walls and iron balconies. These precisely crafted artworks appears on buildings throughout the city, each one part of a master plan by an artist who transformed childhood nostalgia into a multi-million-dollar empire. This is Anonymous, a French artist known only as Invader, built one of the most recognizable brands in contemporary art, transforming simple pixel art into pieces that now sell for millions at Sotheby's and Christie's. And you're not going to believe this. He did it all without ever showing his face. Back in the late 1990s, when the internet was just beginning to reshape our world, a young art student in Paris was playing with an ideal that seemed almost too simple. What if he could bring video game characters into the real world? Not through screens or projections, but through permanent installations that would become part of the city itself. This was about making art that would speak to an entire generation that grew up with joysticks in their hands and pixels in their dreams. But what happened next surprised everyone, including the artist himself. Let me paint the picture back in 1998. The digital revolution was just beginning to transform our world. The internet was in its infancy. Cell phones were basic devices for just call and text, and the art world was still deeply rooted in traditional mediums. And in Paris, from the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts, was about to challenge everything about how art could exist in the urban spaces. Back then, the late 1990s street art was still largely seen as vandalism. Digital art was barely recognized, and the ideal of video games as a cultural influence was dismissed by the establishment. But this young artist saw something different. Having grown up in the golden age of arcade gaming, he had witnessed the birth of digital culture firsthand. The boom of video game arcades in the late 70s and early 80s had created a new visual language, one built entirely of pixels. Throughout his childhood, like countless others of his generation, he had spent hours in dimly lit arcades. Believe it or not, games like Space Invaders, Pac-Man, and Mario Bros. These were the first exposure many people had to digital graphics. These games, with their simple yet iconic characters, had shaped the visual vocabulary of an entire generation. The Space Invaders game, released in 1978, it had become a global phenomenon, its alien characters instantly recognized across cultural and language barriers. To him, these pixelated invaders represented something profound. The moment when digital culture began to infiltrate our everyday lives. The simplicity of their design, built from basic squares, made them the perfect symbol for this technological revolution. But his vision went beyond just appreciating these digital icons. While his fellow art school graduates were pursuing conventional paths, seeking gallery representation, courting collectors, and working with the established art world system, he was developing a radically different approach. Instead of waiting for the art world to accept digital culture, he would bring it directly into people's daily lives. And that's how Paris would become his canvas, but not in the way traditional street artists worked. The city, despite its strict surveillance and policing, offered the perfect backdrop for his plan. Its historical architecture and modern urban spaces would create a striking contrast with his digital-inspired works. Rather than temporary graffiti or wheat paste posters, he would create permanent installations that would become part of the city's fabric. This is where his brand building genius truly emerged. What I want you all to understand is, in an era where artists were increasingly expected to be public figures, constantly promoting themselves on media, events, magazines, this man took the opposite approach. He created something far more powerful than a signature. He built a persona that would capture people's imagination. Take the name Invader. He became a masked figure moving through the art world like a character from his beloved video games, like Bansky, but for retro games. Now, this decision to remain anonymous wasn't just a practical choice to avoid legal issues, He was installing unauthorized art, but it also worked as a masterful marketing strategy. While other artists sought the spotlight, he understood that mystery creates desire. He became known as an unidentified, free artist, a presence that could be anywhere and nowhere at once. At his own exhibitions, he would blend in with the crowd, silently observing as collectors and critics discuss his work, standing just inches away from analyzing his artistic intentions. This carefully cultivated anonymity became as much a part of his brand as the mosaics themselves. In a world of constant exposure and oversharing, his refusal to show his face or reveal his identity created an irresistible mystique. The art world, which typically demands to know everything about their stars, found itself captivated by an artist who offered his work but kept his identity hidden. Even his parents, he would later reveal, believed he worked as a simple tile installer, a detail that only added again to his mystique. Like the Space Invaders in the original game, he became a figure that would appear unexpectedly, leaving his mark on the urban landscape before vanishing again into the night. But Invader wasn't satisfied just to be mysterious. He wanted to be systematic. He approached his street installations with the precision of a military campaign. Each city he invaded would be carefully mapped out in advance. Each installation would be photographed, documented, and given a unique code. The creation of each mosaic follows a meticulous process that begins long before any tiles touch a wall. Street art typically appears in the form of spray paint, markers, or wheat-pasted posters, temporary mediums that fade or wash away with time. But Invader's choice of ceramic tiles represented a fundamental shift in how street art could exist in urban spaces. In his studio, each piece starts as a detailed digital design, mapping out exactly how the pixels will translate into ceramic squares. The planning phase can take weeks, considering not just the aesthetics, but also the practical challenges of the installation. Color selection becomes crucial. Each shade must be precisely matched to available tile options, and sometimes custom ordered to achieve the exact look he envisioned. Individual tiles are cut to specific dimensions, sometimes as small as a centimeter square. These pieces are then arranged and fixed onto backing panels in a predetermined pattern. The technique has evolved over years of experimentation, resulting in installations that can withstand decades of exposure to weather and urban wear. For installation, he developed a proprietary mixture of industrial grade adhesives and cement that bonds the mosaics permanently to their chosen locations. This isn't art meant to fade away. These pieces become integral parts of the buildings they occupy, as permanent as the bricks surrounding them. The intention behind this permanence speaks to a larger vision, creating works that would outlast their creator and become enduring landmarks in the urban landscape. If you're planning your next drop and you're not 100% sure it's ready to sell out, I got something for you. I put together a free online assessment to help streetwear brands like yours figure out if you're really set to make your next release a success. This isn't just some generic checklist either. It's built to help you understand whether your hype is real and strong enough to drive demand, how to keep your brand exclusive while building recognition, and if your plan is tight enough to actually sell out. If you're serious about making moves, hit the link in the description, take the assessment, and find out if your brand is really ready for that release. Don't wait until it's too late. This durability has proven to be one of his brand's strongest assets. As years pass, his early installations remain as vibrant as the day they were placed. Their colors unfaded by sun or rain. They've transcended their status as street art to become cultural landmarks, referenced in tourist guides and sought out by visitors. In many cases, building owners who intentionally viewed the installations with skepticism now proudly preserve them, recognizing their culture and economic value. But here's where Invader's genius really shows through. He understood that in the digital age, art art needs to exist both in the physical and virtual worlds. In 2014, he launched Flash Invaders, a smartphone app that turns finding his installations into a game. Users earn points by photographing and collecting his pieces, creating a global community of art hunters. This gamification of his art was a masterstroke. It transformed passive viewers into active participants, created a database of his work's condition and location, and built a community around his brand. The app has been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times, with users competing to find and photograph every piece he's ever installed. By 2000, Invader had placed several hundred mosaics around Paris. That's right, several hundreds. But he wasn't content to stay in one city. He began what he calls his invasion waves, traveling to major cities around the world to install his pieces. London, New York, Tokyo, Hong Kong. Each city would receive dozens of installations, carefully placed in locations both prominent and obscure. And this global expansion served multiple purposes. It increased his visibility, created international demand for his work, and reinforced his brand identity as a global artist. Each new city he invaded generated local media coverage, building his reputation and creating buzz around his work. And it worked a lot. The real genius in Invader's approach came from understanding how to transform street art into a sustainable business empire. The free public installations were just the beginning. He launched invasion kits, limited edition boxes that contain all the materials and instructions needed to create an authentic Space Invader mosaic at home. These kits started selling for around $500, letting fans own a piece of his art without breaking the bank. Fast forward to 2025, and these same kits now command up to $15,000 at auction houses. Then came his groundbreaking move into fine art with the Rubik Cubism. The concept sounds almost absurd on paper, taking hundreds of Rubik's cubes and arranging each face to create massive pixelated images. Each piece requires painstaking manipulation of every cube, resulting in works that can weigh over 80 pounds. The first series focused on album covers, turning iconic records like The Velvet Underground and Nico into mesmerizing pixel art that caught the attention of serious collectors. Then, his studio expanded into 3 distinct series of Rubik Cubism works. The Bad Men collection featured portraits of infamous figures from Al Capone to Osama bin Laden. Masterpieces reinterpreted classical paintings like the Mona Lisa. Low fidelity transformed album covers into hypnotic grids of cubes. These pieces started selling in galleries for 5 figures. By 2010, they were reaching 6 figures. Just take a look at the auction house's numbers. In 2008, a Rubik's Cube piece sold at the Art Curio for 72,000 euros. By 2015, his Vienna mosaic sold for about 356,200 euros at the same auction house. In 2020, a single piece crossed the $1 million mark, selling for $1.2 million at Christie's. A commissioned mosaic installation for a private collector in Hong Kong reportedly sold for $2.1 million in 2022. Books, prints, and posters kept his work accessible to everyday fans, with prices ranging from $30 to a few hundred. Gallery pieces occupied the middle ground, selling for tens of thousands, and at the top end, his major works now command prices that put him in a company of blue-chip contemporary artists. In the street pieces, you will find this funny property owners in Paris who once might have called city service to remove the same exact work that Invaders was creating, now switched up his whole energy and hired security guards to protect it. A building in the Moraes district saw its value increase by 250,000 euros after an Invader piece appeared on its facade. Real estate listings in Paris started mentioning authentic Invader mosaic as a selling point, like having a Picasso hanging in the living room. The numbers kept climbing. In 2019, an early invasion kit from 2004 sold for 68,750 euros at auction. A rare prototype kit from 2000 even reached 87,500 euros. Even his books became collector items. First editions of his Invasion Los Angeles guide now sells for over $2,000. When you put up numbers like that, people start to take you more seriously. right? Then major galleries and museums usually jump on board after you start to begin to get the attention, and people usually say, oh, this artist became mainstream and he sold out. But no, this is just the way how it goes. The Museum of Modern Art, for instance, in Paris, acquired several pieces for its permanent collection, Sotheby's and Christie's, a status symbol in the art world reserved for the most commercially successful artists. As of 2024, he has created over 4,000 pieces in 79 cities across 6 continents, all made by him. No mass production and plenty of attention to detail. Now I want to show you something incredible. This is exactly what happens when, as an artist, you understand your brand, your vibe, and most importantly, what I always like to say, how to connect people to it. This actually goes hand in hand with streetwear. Most brands, or let's just say people or personas, chase numbers, but I believe you need to build real loyalty. One comment, one interaction, one relationship at a time. It's all about having real combos to help people develop a genuine connection with you. This is the way how you should approach creating a community, and from that community you can start selling a product that you and that community actually believe in. You know those moments when you walk into a place and everything just feels right? That's exactly what happened when you visit Invader's website. It's like stepping into an old school arcade, but one that's been perfectly preserved and reimagined for the modern age. The genius of the site isn't just that it looks like a video game, it's that it feels like one. From the moment you land on the home page, you're starting a game. Everything about it screams retro gaming, but in a way that feels authentic rather than forced. The black backgrounds, the glowing text, the pixel art, it all comes together to create something that's both nostalgic and somehow totally fresh. This isn't just some art slapping a retro theme on a standard website, yeah. Every single element feels like it was pulled straight from the golden age of arcade gaming. It's the kind of attention to detail that makes you smile when you notice it, like finding an Easter egg in your favorite video game. This gaming aesthetic isn't just a cool look, it's the perfect way to tell the story of his art. Look at this. When you're browsing through his global invasions, you're not just looking at a project archive, you're exploring a world map in a game. Each city becomes a new level, each installation a point scored. The best part, it never feels gimmicky. Every gaming element serves a purpose, making his art more accessible and engaging. And it's not trying to be a serious art gallery website, because that's not who he is. Instead, it's an extension of his artistic universe, as authentic and unique as the mosaic pieces he installs around the world. What's really cool is how timeless it feels. He really stays true to his gaming roots, and somehow it works better now than ever. Maybe because in a world of slick corporate websites, there's something refreshingly honest about one that knows exactly what it is and owns it completely. The site shows us that great branding isn't about following rules. It's about creating your own game and playing it perfectly. In Invader's case, he turns his love for gaming into a complete digital experience that makes perfect sense for who he is and what his art represents. It's not just a website, it's a masterclass in staying true to who you are, true to your brand voice, values, and vision, and outlook, right down to the last pixel. So here's something most artists miss about building an audience that I just want to drop to you guys. Again, it's not just about dropping amazing work and disappearing. The people that do that are usually in the limelight and usually have an entire team working behind the scenes. Sure, the mysterious artist thing sounds cool, like Invader, but let's look at what actually works. Invader figured this out early on, and it's a huge part of why his work has stayed relevant for over 2 decades. Let's just look at what's the usual path that many artists follow. They create something incredible, right? Share it, get some sort of attention, and then just vanish for months while working on their next big thing. It's like they're playing peekaboo with their audience, which is the wrong way to go about it. You pop up, you say, look at this, and then just disappear. What you guys have to realize is by the time you come back, your audience just moved on to something else. There's so much things that's online, so much people that's doing what you're doing. And on top top of that, you're not just creating a sense of connection with them. That moment that you probably had when you released it is probably forgotten about now. And what I'm trying to tell you guys to do is different as well. I think you guys should actually develop a true connection with your community. Start writing and talking to your community daily, whether if it's through Instagram, because I know a lot of you do use that platform, or even creating a Discord server and connecting those people from Instagram to that Discord. But you have to start creating a general sense of connection so your audience can develop a true relationship with you, and that in fact would put you in an unfair advantage for your competitors in the competition. I see big brands that do this all the time. I'm talking about brands that are multi-million-dollar companies having people that's dedicated to the side, time dedicated to the side, just to reach out to their audience, talk to them, actually make the audience feel involved in their process, and on top of that can even collect feedback from them as well. You have to create stories that people could follow and participate in. This is what consistent engagement looks like, and I'm telling you guys, if you could just take an hour out your day to just write 15 to 20 people, let's just say for Instagram, you will be surprised of how much engagement you would get and just how genuinely involved people will be inside your content and products that you showcase on the platform. And people will even showcase your events when it's time to go out in real life and interact with one another. When you go ghost for months at a time, you're basically telling your audience that staying connected with them isn't a priority. Each time you disappear, you're making them work harder to care about what you do. It's like maintaining any relationship. You can't just show up whenever you feel like it and expect people to be excited to see you. You need to be present, be consistent, give people reasons to stay interested in what you're doing. This doesn't mean sharing everything. Invader still maintains its mistakeness, but it means keeping the conversation going, is what I'm trying to say. The key is finding ways to keep people engaged that feel natural to your work. Invader didn't create an app because someone told him he needed a digital strategy. He created it because it made sense with his gaming inspired art. The engagement feels authentic because it is authentic. This is particularly important in today's world where attention spans are shorter than ever. When you disappear for months, you're not building mystery. You're just giving people permission to forget about you. Each time you come back, you're essentially starting over, rebuilding momentum from scratch. The beauty of this is that it creates a snowball effect. When people feel consistently engaged with your work, they become advocates for it. They share it with others, create content around it, build communities discussing it. This organic growth is worth far more than any brief viral moment, I'm telling you, if you want to have longevity inside this game. Remember, if it's one thing I want you to get from this video is going dark doesn't create mystique anymore. It creates disconnect. In a world where everyone is fighting for attention, consistency wins over sporadic brilliance. You don't need to share everything, but you need to share enough to keep people invested in your journey. Because when you maintain that connection, when you give people reasons to stay engaged, that's when your work starts to matter to them on a deeper level. In return, that's what really sells. Alright y'all, this is Lee from North Studios. Next time, I'm out of here. Peace.